We're going to switch gears a little bit here. The examples we've been looking at so far have been literary examples, and I want to switch into a science example for any of you engineers or scientists out there, because when a scientist or an engineer writes something in the English language, guess what? It follows rules and conventions of grammar also. We're looking at here is a definition of the concept of refraction from physics. And I'd like to again to read through the definition, and then we'll take a look at the grammar of this definition. Refraction is the change in direction of light as it enters a transparent medium of different density. For example, light from air entering glass will slow down and change direction toward the normal. Light passing from glass into air will do the opposite. This explains how the lenses work in eyeglasses. Now, I know it's kind of a condensed definition, but it's the essence of it is here. And we're going to take a look at the grammar now. Again, as we've done before, let's see if we can divide this into two or more sentences. And it looks like we can. Let's put a marker right there so we have the first part of the sentence up here, of the definition up here, and the second part of the definition down here. Coming up to the upper definition here, let's see if we can find any prepositional phrases. I see some already. In direction, right? Of light, right? In and of are both prepositions. You might think as is a preposition, but it's not. It's a conjunction, and we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Of is definitely a preposition, though, so we have of different density. For is a preposition, so for example is a prepositional phrase. Toward is a preposition, so toward the normal is also a prepositional phrase. I think we've taken care of all of those. You can see, as I've said many times during this course, prepositional phrases are just everywhere in writing. They're easy to spot, and they help to adorn or to embellish writing and give it more body and more meaning. Let's look if we can find the subject here, and the subject seems to be refraction itself. So we're going to mark that with an S. The verb seems to be very clear, is, okay. Okay, refraction is a change, okay. Now you might think, is that a direct object or is that the subject equivalent? And I think because of the verb to be, it becomes a subject equivalent. So refraction and change are largely the same thing here. As, conjunction, it. So we have kind of two sentences here separated by a conjunction. It refers back to light, so we're going to call that a subject. Enters, verb, a transparent medium. This time we do have a direct object, medium, and transparent is describing medium, so it is an adjective. Okay, of different density, prepositional phrase. Let's go to the next sentence. Did I leave anything out? I guess not. For example, light from air. Okay, it looks like light is subject this time. Oops, from air. I missed that one. Prepositional phrase. Entering glass. This is an example of a phrase with an ing verb as a phrase. So this is a phrase, but it's not a prepositional phrase, so we're going to mark it in brackets here, like that. It is an ing phrase, okay? And actually, its function here is to describe light. What about light? So it's acting as an adjective, okay? Will slow down. Now we get to our verb part here, and I think will slow is the verb, a double verb here. Down would be an adverb because it's telling where it's going to go. And we have a conjunction, change direction. Clearly, this is a verb, and this is looks like a direct object. So what is our subject that this is extending from? Light. Light changes direction. So light is our subject, change is our verb, direction, direct object. Toward the normal. So we've taken care of the first part of our definition. Let's go to the second part. Any prepositional phrases? Yes, from glass into air, in eyeglasses. There are the prepositional phrases. Now the next thing we look for is the subject. What is doing the action here? It's light, okay? And light, is it passing? Is that the verb? No, you gotta watch out here now. This is not the verb for light. This is the verb that begins a phrase. Passing from glass is a phrase. So we're gonna mark that in brackets, okay? And because it's a phrase that describes light, we're gonna call it an adjective phrase, okay? So again, light is our subject. Will do is the verb. That's what light is going to do. The opposite. Now, is this a subject equivalent or is it a direct object? And as a matter of judgment here, I would call it a direct object. There might be others who disagree with me. Let's look at the last sentence. This explains how the lenses work in eyeglasses. This is the subject. Explains, verb, very clear there. How the lenses work is a phrase. And it's a phrase that describes this, right? So it's an adjective phrase. And in eyeglasses is still a prepositional phrase. So we have thus analyzed the definition of refraction. Okay, let's move on. We're going to stay in the field of science. This is actually a speech called Space and Time in pre-relativity physics. And this speech was given in Germany in 1922 by a young scientist named Albert Einstein. So let's see what he had to say. Okay, I'll read it first. The theory of relativity is intimately connected with the theory of space and time. I shall therefore begin with a brief investigation of the origin of our ideas of space and time, although in doing so I know, and there's more that we'll take a look at in a minute. Let's see if we can divide this into two parts. Let's see. Well, although is going to act as a conjunction here. So we can start basically right here and divide everything up here, and then in so doing I know is a separate part that we're going to go on to later. Let's see if we can find some prepositional phrases. Oh my goodness, here we go. Of relativity, there we go. With the theory, prepositional phrase. Of space and time, there we go. With a brief investigation, prep phrase. Of the origin, prep phrase. Of our ideas, prep phrase. Of space and time, prep phrase. This looks like the whole sentence is made up of prepositional phrases. Don't be surprised when you see this in your own reading. Now let's see if we can find our subject here. Technically, the subject is theory, but in fact, theory of relativity is the name of an idea or the name of a concept. So actually, we could probably call the whole thing a giant subject, theory of relativity. Depends on how specific you want to be. Is there a verb? Yes, is a verb. Intimately connected, okay? So, connected is an adjective, getting back to theory, all right? And intimately is an adverb, which is describing the adjective. I know this is a funny thing to say, and we haven't talked very much about it, but in Module 7, we'll get more into how adverbs can modify or describe adjectives. Let's see. I shall therefore, we have a comma here probably. I shall therefore begin, all right? So we have a subject. Shall begin is the verb. Therefore is an adverb, all right? With a brief investigation of the ongoings of our ideas of space and time. All right. I think we've got everything under control here. Let's move on to the second part of his talk. In doing so, okay, and we have a prepositional phrase. Actually, so is an adverb. I know, subject, verb. Well, let's go and see what Einstein knows. And from the first part, which says, so I know, then over here, that I introduce a controversial subject, the object of all science, whether natural science or psychology, is to coordinate our experiences and to bring them into a logical system. How are our customary ideas of space and time related to the character of our experience? Okay, so let's look over this section of Einstein's talk and see if we can spot some prepositional phrases. Let's see, yes, of all science, prep phrase. To coordinate looks like a prep phrase, but it's not. It's kind of a verb. So we're going to let that go. To bring is also a verb. Okay, into a logical system, because into is a preposition. Of space and time, of is a preposition. Related to the character, in this case, it's a preposition, and of our experience. So as you can see, quite a number of prepositional phrases. As we did before, let's look for the subject. And it looks like, so I know that I introduce a controversial subject. This becomes a clause, because it begins with that. It's a weak clause, because it doesn't have a complete thought. And let's see, what does it refer to? I would call this an adjective clause, referring to origin of ideas in space from the previous page. Let's move on here. The object of all science. Okay, object is the subject. Whether natural science or psychology. Here we have phrase. Okay, because again, it cannot stand by itself. Yeah, but it's not a prepositional phrase, so I'm not putting it in parentheses, but it is a phrase. Is, verb, to coordinate our experiences. This is a phrase, and it acts as a subject equivalent. All right, to object. And is a conjunction, to bring. So we have another phrase, to bring them into a logical system. So the whole thing is a phrase. And again, this would be a subject equivalent phrase. So next sentence, how are our customary ideas related to the character of our experience? Okay. Subject, ideas. Customary describes ideas, so we have an adjective. How tells something about the verb, so it's an adverb. Are is the verb. Our is an adjective describing ideas. Are related, we have a two-part verb here, are related, and the rest of these are prepositional phrases. So you can see the basics are here, just like in other sentences we've taken a look at. And we're going to wrap this up now and move on to one more example of writing. Okay, we're back with our last selection of writing to analyze. And this is a little bit upbeat now because we've talked about Macbeth killing the king, and we've talked about Abraham Lincoln at the war memorial for the soldiers at Gettysburg, all kind of dark. And so now we have kind of an uplifting poem to end up with. It's called On Going Home, and it's by a poet in New Hampshire. So let's see. I'll read through the poem first, and then we'll take a look at its grammar. I remember a New Hampshire winter's eve, as through the dark night my sleigh sped to family fare and season's warmth, as snowflakes fell and chilled my cheeks, and my hands held tight, as I pondered feast and hugs, and my heart danced with joy. Kind of a nice poem, definitely. Maybe this person's going home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. It's not real clear, but something like that. Let's take a look at our grammar. First of all, let's look for prepositional phrases. And I see here to, family, and season's warmth. We have a long prep phrase there, 2 parts. Let's see. As I ponder feast and hugs. With joy. There's another one down here. Are those the only 2? It looks like it. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if we can find a subject in the first part here. I, subject, remember, verb, okay. What did I remember? I remember an eve, so there's our direct object. Eve in this case is short for evening. New Hampshire winters, all of that is adjective, right? Describing eve. As, we have a conjunction here. Through the dark night my sleigh sped. All right. Now here we have a kind of sentence where you have the subject and the verb at the end. It's very common in poetry. So the subject here is sleigh. Sped is the verb. Okay. My is an adjective describing sleigh. And through the dark night, we have a prepositional phrase. So I did miss that the time before. To family fare and season's warmth, a long prepositional phrase. As, we have a conjunction. Snowflakes fell and chilled my cheeks. Okay, we have snowflakes. Flakes would be the subject. Snow would be the adjective. Fell, our verb. And conjunction. Chilled my cheeks, verb. Adjective. Direct object. Okay. And my hands held tight. Conjunction. Hands, subject, held, verb, tight, adverb, telling how they held. My, adjective. Finally, as I pondered feast and hugs. Conjunction. I, subject, pondered, verb, feast and hugs, direct objects. We have a double direct objects connected by a conjunction. And finally, and my heart danced with joy. Conjunction and, heart, subject, danced, verb, my is an adjective. And we finish it up with a very nice sounding dance with joy. So that is a grammar analysis of On Going Home. I want to remind you that as you do your own reading, you can more and more look for these parts of grammar in this text that you're reading. It doesn't matter what kind of reading you do, you will find prep phrases, you'll find clauses, you'll find subjects and verbs, and adjectives and adverbs. They are all there, and now you can identify them. This wraps up Module 6, and we'll be moving on to our last module, Module 7, shortly. Thank you very much, and goodbye.